Thank you for joining us for a 24-minute countdown to the future presentation, Free to Thrive. This will be focused on the local impacts of climate change and solutions, especially as they relate to food security. My name is Alicia Brewster, and I'm the Program Director for Sustaining Way, a nonprofit located in the heart of Greenville, South Carolina, in Nicholtown. I'm joined today by 4 other Sustaining Way team members and friends who will highlight the science of climate change and actions that can slow down these changes and increase access to nutritious food. There is no future without food, and right now, the future of food is looking more and more uncertain. It's not just the jaw-dropping feat of feeding a population projected to reach over 9.7 billion by 2050. It's doing it all while facing the dangerous loss of 24 billion tons of fertile soil each year. It's also doing it while climate change isn't just making farming more difficult, it's also making our food less and less nutritious. That's a lot to chew on. But first, we want to open with Earthrise, an inspiring word to get us grounded and motivated from the renowned American poet and activist, Amanda Gorman.
On Christmas Eve, 1968, astronaut Bill Anders snapped a photo of the Earth as Apollo 8 orbited the moon. Those 3 guys were surprised to see from their eyes a planet looked like an Earthrise, a blue orb hovering over the moon's gray horizon with deep oceans and silver skies. It was our world's first glance at itself, a first chance to see a shared reality, a declared stance, and a commonality, a glimpse into our planet's mirror. And as threats drew nearer, our own urgency became clearer as we realized that we hold nothing dearer than this floating body we all call home. We've known that we're caught in the throes of climactic changes some say will just go away, while some simply pray to survive another day. For it is the obscure, the oppressed, the poor who, when the disaster is declared done, still suffer more than anyone. Climate change is the single greatest challenge of our time. Of this, you're certainly aware. It's saddening, but I cannot spare you from knowing an inconvenient fact, because it's getting the facts straight that gets us to act and not to wait. So I tell you this not to scare you, but to prepare you, to dare you to dream a different reality where, despite disparities, we all care to protect this world, this riddled blue marvel, this little true marvel, to master the verve and the nerve to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve, to protect, to preserve that one and only home that is ours. To use your unique power to give next generations the planet they deserve. We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth. And while this is a training in sustaining the future of our planet, there is no rehearsal. The time is now, because the reversal of harm and protection of a future so universal should be anything but controversial. So, Earth, pale blue dots, we will fail you not. Just as we chose to go to the moon, we know it's never too soon to choose hope. We choose to do more than cope with climate change. We choose to end it. We refuse to lose. We do this and more, not because it's very easy or nice, but because it is necessary. Because with every dawn we carry the weights of the fates of this celestial body orbiting a star, and as heavy as that weight sounded, it doesn't hold us down, but it keeps us grounded, steady, ready, because an environmental movement of this size is simply another form of an Earthrise. To see it, close your eyes, visualize that all of us in this room and outside of these walls or in these halls, all of us as change makers, or in a spacecraft floating like a silver raft in space, and we see the face of a planet anew. We relish the view we witness. It's round green and brilliant blue, which inspires us to ask deeply, wholly, what can we do? Open your eyes, know the future of this wise planet is right in sight. Right in all of us. Trust this earth uprising. All of us bring light to exciting solutions never tried before. For it is our hope that implores us at our uncompromising core to keep rising up for an earth more than worth fighting for.
Well, welcome to our Truth in 10 presentation. This is the first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken on the last day of the Apollo missions and changed the way that humanity thought about our common home. It reminds us that we are all connected and our actions have an impact on our planet. There are only 3 questions remaining about the climate crisis. Must we change, can we change, and will we change? First of all, must we change? The scientific community all around the world has been telling us for a long time, yes, we must change. Now, Mother Nature is telling us. The sky is not a vast, limitless expanse the way it appears to us as we stand on ground and look up. In reality, it's just a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. We are putting 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the atmosphere every single day. That pollution, especially carbon dioxide or CO2, is building up and is trapping heat. Here is the basic science of global warming. This has been understood by scientists since the 1800s. Energy from the sun comes to the earth in the form of light. That energy is absorbed by the earth and warms it. Some of that energy is re-radiated from the earth in the form of heat. Some of that outgoing heat is trapped by the atmosphere, which is a good thing. It has kept our planet at a stable temperature. Now, however, we have been thickening our atmosphere by filling it with heat-trapping pollution. More heat energy is trapped, which is warming our planet at an unprecedented rate. There are many sources of human-caused global warming pollution: agriculture practices, forest burning, transportation, and many other factors. But the main source and cause for the rise in global temperatures we see today is the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels still provide more than 80% of the world's energy. Fossil fuel use and emissions have gone up dramatically since World War II. In the last few years, there was a leveling off as the world adopted more and more clean energy solutions until another recent spike in global warming pollution. As a result of this pollution being trapped in the atmosphere, global temperatures have risen dramatically. 19 of the 20 hottest years ever measured with instruments have occurred since 2001. 2016 was the hottest of them all. Heat itself is a problem in many parts of the world and many parts of the country. Heat affects not only people, but animals, crops, and our weather. On a global basis, more than 90% of all extra heat energy trapped by our atmosphere is going into the oceans. This heat makes the ocean-based storms like hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones stronger and more destructive. Half of the increase in global ocean heat content has occurred in less than 20 years. Hurricane Florence produced record-breaking rainfall across portions of North and South Carolina when it made landfall in the morning of September 14, 2018, near Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. The extra heat also disrupts the water cycle. The amount of water vapor that evaporates off the ocean increases and the ocean's warm. The water vapor is carried over the land and often falls in much bigger precipitation events. When the land can't absorb all the water that falls into the large storms and downpours, we see floods and mudslides. Extreme precipitation events have produced more rain and become more common since the 1950s in many regions around the world, including much of the US. The number of climate-related extreme weather events have been going up worldwide, according to the insurance industry. The last 2 years rank among the top 10 most expensive for overall disaster losses, with over $160 billion in losses in 2018 and $140 billion in 2019. Here's our major weather events affect us locally. So here's a photo of our garden at Annie's house after the 2018 flood. We've had 2 major floods this year, with the most recent larger than the one in the photograph. The water was up beyond the shed door. Sometimes people wonder how global warming can be blamed for causing more precipitation and flooding, and at the same time, more drought. The extra heat is trapped by rising levels of greenhouse gases actually leads to both. And as climate changes, precipitation patterns also change, leaving some places with less rainfall than before. Heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice, corn, and soybeans. Exposure to these high levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content of many staple crops such as rice, wheat, and soy. These drought and precipitation cycles combined with our agriculture practices greatly affect our topsoil. We have lost 1/3 of our topsoil, and this just causes devastating effects. The Department of Defense in the United States have long warned about the refugee crises connected to the climate crisis, as well as pandemic diseases, water shortages, and food shortages. Food insecurity. Our neighbors here in Nicholstown suffer from food insecurity. We expect this problem to get worse. Infectious disease, heat stress, air pollution, and waterborne diseases are all influenced by climate change and not in our favor. All of these threats, including many we haven't even covered here, and the fact that the World Economic Forum saying climate change is the #1 threat in our global economy, help us to answer the question, must we change? So, do we have to change? Yes, we do. But what about the second question? Can we change? The answer to this question is very, very exciting and positive. We've got the solutions available to us now, and Shadia will share those with us. Shadia, you are on mute.
Hey guys, so a couple of solutions that we do have as far as agriculture go is urban gardening, soil restoration techniques, and people who care enough to make a change. The fact of the matter is we did not get here overnight and things will not change overnight. The only way to combat climate change is to prepare for the worst while working for the best. Urban gardening is nothing new, but its comeback can prove beneficial in more ways than one. Opening up public spaces to teach and sustain communities is one of the many solutions to solve not only food insecurity and food deserts, but community relations as well. This includes soil degradations, as lack of knowledge has and continues to be what holds back progression. The sharing of knowledge can take place across great distance and engulf all communities with the help of the web. So let's use it. At the end goal is not only zero net emissions, that is simply a goal checkpoint rather than an end. Taking baby steps would be just plain smarter for the future. It is more so us putting our resources that we have to better use. So now I'll pass it on to Alicia.
Alicia, you are also.
Thank you, Michelle and Shadia. That was a wonderful presentation and definitely hit home with why this is such an important topic to discuss, climate change and food insecurity. So to close this out, we have 2 climate activists who are also hard at work doing urban gardening and farming, and we are going to have a discussion about why these topics are so important even here in the upstate area. So first we have Yvonne Reeder. Yvonne is past president of the Nicholstown Neighborhood Association and pioneer neighborhood garden originator. Yvonne became president in 2009, a year after community member Members Margaret McJunkin, Sylvia Palmer, Hardy Ferguson, and other community members fought to convince the city of Greenville to purchase a corner lot in Nicholtown that had become toxic to the community with street pharmaceutical reps. Her passion for helping to create a better world is her driving force. We're also joined by a certified sustainable agriculturist, Michael Brown. He's a member of the Spartanburg County Food System Coalition, working to combat the reality of food insecurity in this community. He is passionate about helping to heal the land, and he is founder of a regenerative urban farm, Roots of Life. It's always a pleasure to spend time with both you, Yvonne and Michael. Today, I want you to briefly share why you work in these areas of local food security and climate change. So, Miss Yvonne, I want to begin with you. So what drove you to become the originator of Nicholtown's Neighborhood Garden?
Well, in 2009, when I became president of the Nicholtown Neighborhood Association, there was a big push with Live Well to create a healthier place in Greenville in various low wealth neighborhoods. Nicholtown was chosen, and so the Pepsi granted $2,500 to get us to start a garden. And when the city found out about it, the city said, well, we'll do our part. And they furnished us with someone to plow the land that had been purchased by the city, and the buildings were torn down. And so Mr. Eddie Bird, who was a native of Newberry and knew everything about gardening, said that he would be our master gardener. And so the community and various churches joined in our funding, and the residents, old and young, of all ages, came together, and we pulled and weeds and rocks and cleared the land. I took samples over to Clemson to find out if there was anything terrible about the grounds that would not grow fresh vegetables safely. And from there, we came together in what used to be a corner of pain and really bad for the neighborhood became one that was full of growth in vegetables, growth in community members getting to know each other, growth in relationships, and growth in growing healthy, because everyone was allowed without charge to have a fresh meal out of the garden every week. And that went on for years and years, and we are still continuing to feed our elderly and our low wealth members in the community without any charge. It just means so much to a community when you come together and eat and grow food together. Years after the World War II ended, a lot of the veterans built homes in the Nicholtown community, and the families came together out of need because money was tight, and everyone had a different garden. And some families grew potatoes, some grew collard greens, some grew turnip greens, some grew green beans, and we worked together in the community to make sure that people had fresh vegetables. Phyllis Wheatley opened a special class on canning, and the mothers could go over there after work and learn how to do canning, which was very fresh food without preservatives like today. And so we feel like doing this effort will teach our young people today that everything in the past was not bad, and that the part of fresh vegetables without preservatives being added is a must if we're going to be a healthy community, and working together to plant, and not just plant vegetables, but to plant relationships of caring for each other and learning our histories together so that it's not repeated, and getting to know each other. Because if you know someone, you will be less likely to be judgmental for them because maybe their pants are saggy, but you know that they still care. gives us all a much more positive lifestyle. So there are just so many things about looking at the health of each other in your neighborhood and taking care and working together that comes from being a healthy community. And we try to capitalize on that. We also had walking groups, exercise classes, all the things that help make a community a real community where neighbors grow together.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that history. So it sounds like, as you described Nicholtown over the years, that at one time we didn't have the challenges with food security. It sounds like everyone was working together and actually growing their own food in Nicholtown. Thank you so much for sharing that history with us. So Michael, I'd love to hear from you about what brought you into this field. Why do you, work in the areas of sustainable agriculture and also around climate change?
Well, when we look at the reality of our communities, I was no different than anyone else that had a chance to grow up in a neighborhood that at one point would have local fresh food, not local, offered from a local fruit stand or vegetable stand. There definitely were grocery stores in the neighborhood. But now we know the reality of Black and brown communities. Typically, families spend at least $130 every week of their disposable income. And, that is the third largest household expense on average now, behind actual paying for housing and transportation. And while the food industry may be a very, very large, if we look in terms of dollars that we look at on an annual basis, 1.8 trillion, it has left our communities devastated. And so that was one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to try to address what we've heard in terms of food insecurity. It plays a significant impact upon, our health, definitely our environment, and our economy. If you currently look at the way the food system is set up, there's so many inequities involved in this. In the land that's so abundant, there are millions of families that can't access healthy food, and food systems as it's set up can make it a negative aspect in terms of people trying to address it. So when you look at the lack of access to healthy foods, millions of people in particular low income areas, we just wanted to make this an opportunity that we try to help address some of the things that Miss Yvonne has pointed out. When you have a chance to engage where you live at in terms of community gardens, backyard gardens, and front yard farming, as I like to describe it, not only to give you an access to that healthy food, but the realities that come with it. And those realities can include, the health disparities that communities of color and low income communities face, things that are preventable disease, whether it's related to obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Those are drivers that disproportionately affect those communities. And so just wanted to provide the opportunity and just a different way in which we can approach it. And so with that, through the sustainability that you mentioned, regenerative agriculture in itself really gives a chance for people to learn or to go back and pick up some of those old ways, some of our old practices. But it also adds to where we're growing food. The modern agricultural system is one in which we hear the terms monoculture, which typically is one type of plant that's grown disproportionately to enter into the market system. And most of our land and agriculture now is used to grow food to feed animals that we ultimately are, relying on getting what I would say is an indirect means of getting the nutrients that we can get directly from our plants. And so at 60 Baxter Street, Annie House, what we're doing at Annie's house in the heart of Nicholtown is showing how we can engage in those sustainable practices through the use of regenerative agriculture, which directly impacts climate change because it engages rebuilding the soil. And through that regeneration, where we have biodiversity and we draw down some of the negative things that, unfortunately, the modern agricultural system contributes to, that being the overabundant release of carbon in the area. To engage in regenerative type of farming, to do the kind of agriculture upon your own land, in your own backyard, your front yard, you can draw down some of that carbon. It can have, a wonderful impact of not only doing that, but also preserving the water like we saw, unfortunately with this crazy rain cycle. You can also improve the water cycle within your area. And so it's just an opportunity to improve. And of course, the community can only benefit from it. It's not a negative. It brings us together. It helps us bring back those old times. And of course, it expands the options of the way people eat. So we don't have to rely on those convenience stores, those corner stores, those dollar type chains that really, I would tell you that they offer dead food. And so that's why I had to get involved. And when I changed, my certain practices in life in terms of the way I eat, I was just drawn to it and just felt so compelled to do something at a larger scale for my community.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And as we round out our 24 minutes together, I just want to ask you and Yvonne because I know many of us watching today may be thinking to ourselves, well, I'm not really contributing negatively or impacting our climate so negatively, or there isn't really much that I can do as an individual, as one person, to really change things. So what would you say? Do you feel like there's some personal responsibility that maybe even you, Michael, or you, Miss Yvonne, feel that you've done to contribute to the issues that we're now facing? And what would you say to someone who says, well, I don't know what I can do, as one person? So Michael?
I would tell people, you really can begin where you're at. You may not have a large plot of land. You may not even have, any land to grow anything on. Start in a container. You can grow tomatoes on your back porch, your front porch, and just really have the opportunity to engage in that. Going to the local corner store, buying food that is completely overpriced and it's not healthy food. I've been guilty of that. It's the easy, cheap way out. But just promoting people, just even starting with something as minor as that changes the process, that changes the mindset, and it can help people begin to look at this whole thing differently.
Wow, thank you so much for those wise words. Miss Yvonne.
Well, I think that I can influence the youth in the community to understand that the mentality of being in a garden takes us back in time to slavery, that it doesn't do that. What it does, it teaches us that we are keepers of the land and the earth that God has given us. And that if we get into the garden and we grow things with our own hands, then that's something we did. It's a value, and we're keeping ourselves healthy. And we're also helping other people who can't afford to go and buy things, because if we plant and we have extra, we can share it with those who don't have. I think one of the contributors that we do is when we go to the fast food restaurants for cheap food, and the food is, as Michael said, dead food. It has no nutrients, properties about it at all. And so we're hurting ourselves. We're increasing our medical costs. And so I think we need to really look at the whole picture. And if we spend time sharing the whole picture with people, then they can be convinced that having your own garden, you can even do it in flower pots in the house. You can have those hanging gardens that will hang from the ceiling that grows tomatoes and various spices and things. So it's not very difficult to add a little bit of healthy to your living.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, both you and those tips that we can all use. We all have something that we can give, and certainly just as we are impacting our environment negatively, we also have things that we can do to improve. So thank you for helping us make the connection between climate change and food security. Shadia is going to close out with a few more resources that will help equip all of us to take action.
Okay, so a couple of follow-up actions that you guys can do is to first be educated and well-versed in climate change and basically how you can help the environment. And you have to start with yourself and go outward. So you can't just talk about it. You have to really sow what you reap whenever you're getting serious about it. And to spread the word on social media. Now with social media, depending on how you're looking at it, it can be a really big blessing because you're able to open this dialogue, educate people, and just spread the word about what you learned, and to like constantly improve on whatever it is that you can like improve on your healthy lifestyle and healthy living. And another way is to get political. Talk to your leaders and advocate to your leaders about what you want to put forth and what you want to change or put forth into like, you know, your community. So sort of like how our guest speakers have today with getting a plot of land, that's something you could do in your own community. And to get active, lead and join groups like, you know, Climate Reality, or you don't even have to necessarily join the Climate Reality Project. You can look into your local community and see what your options are in order to get active into the community. So those are all the follow actions we have today. So thank you for
Excellent.
joining.
Thank you so much, Shadia. We want to thank all of you for traveling forward with us over the past 24 minutes. For 24 straight hours, Vice President Gore and other activists across the planet will lead digital presentations and discussions exploring the historic conjunction of climate change, COVID-19, and structural racism that shape this moment and highlight what can be done to confront these challenges and together build the future we want. 24 Hours of Reality will culminate in a special presentation from Vice President Gore and activists on the front lines of the climate and justice crisis worldwide. This special finale presentation begins at 3 p.m. tomorrow, October 11th, and will be streamed live on www.24hoursofreality.org. You can also tune in for 50 amazing speakers at the TED Countdown Global Launch, beginning now through 5 p.m. this evening. We hope that you will join us in working to create communities and a more resilient planet. Thank you all.